Media. As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscuriverse? It's time for another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media that we decide they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed in the black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and with me is a man who's been disavowed by the Secretary of the United States. It's...
It is I, Yahel, a foreign in your American lands.
Why, you're as a
foreigner.
You're as American as the Burrito Supreme, aren't you?
I thought you were going to say American Pie, but okay.
Oh, man. So we're here to discuss Mission Impossible, something that's not obscure, but we've got some obscure media adjacent, and that is in the Mission Impossible comic book. Have you ever read a Mission Impossible comic book in your entire life?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan.
Oh, you have? I mean,
No, never. I'd never even heard of it until you emailed me about it as a show idea. So yeah, how about you? Have you read any of the Mission Impossible tie-ins?
This
before?
is the only one. Like I actually saw they had like a Dell comic, I guess, for the original TV show, which the original show I think came out in like the 60s. So I mean, I saw those, but I was like, there's no way that's gonna be fun to read.
Yeah, it's weird because like Paramount, so Paramount owns Mission Impossible, the franchise, the IP, and they also own, as you may be aware, Star Trek. And Paramount loves doing these. I know they're not the ones that do it, but they love doing these comic book tie-ins to the movies. And the weird thing is, like, they'll make like they do this all the time with Star Trek. They'll make the stuff in the comic books canon, and it's like they'll usually do like a prequel one before the movie or show. And then they'll do one like in between seasons, like about events that happen between seasons. And I kind of hate it.
Because, no, I have to read a comic book. Come on.
Well, I don't think you should have... I like comic books. I have nothing with comic books. I don't think you should like have your make your TV audience need to read some, or not even read, but consume some other form of media to get the full story of the TV show or movie you're showing to them. I think like that's not a great idea, and I think it can lead to a poor viewing experience because a lot of times people don't even know that there was a comic book explaining XYZ thing. Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because the comic we're about to read, and we're about to get to it in a second, but it's got like two stories in it, and the first story is like sort of your typical episode of Mission Impossible, and then the second story is actually a prequel to the original like Tom Cruise movie from back in 96, 97. And even though I was like still deep into comics, like going to my local comic book store like every day, I had no idea that this was a prequel. I mean, I honestly don't even remember ever seeing it on the shelves, so maybe they didn't really order a whole lot because, back then, maybe people didn't really look up to, these kind of comics. Well, and also nobody knew that Mission Impossible was going to end up being a huge hit.
Right, absolutely. But I mean, we know it now, and now you can get the backstory. It's really... like once we get through it, I mean, you'll see. I mean, and I don't know how it is with you Trekkies in the Trek universe of Paramount, but what we're about to read is pretty, like, you don't really need it to enjoy the movie. Like, you would have to be like the ultimate, like, hardcore Mission Impossible fanatic to be like, oh my God, there's a prequel to the Tom Cruise movies. Like, I have to read it right now because it barely, as you're going to see, dear viewer / listener, it doesn't really like reveal too much of the backstory.
Well, I mean, with some of the Trek ones, like There's one where if you didn't read the comic, you wouldn't know that even though Data gets killed at the fourth TNG movie, his memories that were put into B4, which is like a prototype of Data, end up like resurfacing, and he becomes the captain of the
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise. Like E or F, I can't remember. It must be the E. And then Worf also in the comics becomes, if you're not reading, and sometimes they'll like allude to that stuff. And if you weren't reading, you have no idea what they're talking about. They kind of finally fixed some of that stuff in the last season of Picard, but yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that's like was brought into canon for the Trek books. And the weird thing is like, at least with Trek, like it's very you never know what part of the comic books are which comic books are supposed to be canon
Mm-hmm.
and which ones aren't. Is the problem too?
Oh, huh. That is confusing. I mean, I would say if I was a Paramount exec, I would probably assume that the Trek audience would be more inclined to actually read a comic book than the Mission Impossible audience, which is why I would think maybe there's more Star Trek comics than there is Mission Impossible. I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, probably. I mean, I remember when the 2009 Star Trek movie came out, with the one with Chris Pine and stuff. There was like a whole prequel comic book that like involves like Picard. I think that's where Data becomes in that universe, the captain, because that's like a different timeline. But there's a bunch of other stuff that like it would be nice if it had been, I don't know, written into the
Right.
movie. So it's just very weird,
Right. I
very weird.
gotcha.
But
Well,
anyways,
before
I move
we
on.
jump into the Mission Impossible comic, like what is your history with the Mission Impossible franchise? Did you watch the show? Do you like the movies? Help us out here.
I think I might have caught the show here and there, bits and pieces, maybe like on like a night or something like that. But I mean, I haven't watched all the Mission Impossible movies. I think I've watched like maybe half of them. Like them. They're always pretty good. They're just kind of
Like by
long.
like by half, do you mean like the first three or the newer ones, the last three?
I feel like I watched the first two. Uh, I watched whichever one Metallica did the soundtrack for. And I think I watched like the second to last one. So I don't even know which ones I've watched, to be honest. I know I watched the first one for
Wow.
sure, though.
All
One
right.
of the
Yes.
newer ones,
Well.
and I don't know what the other one goes.
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever saw Mission Impossible anything, I think there's a largely forgotten like 80s revamp of the show from the 60s. And I remember my parents kind of turned me onto that because they had already, told me about James Bond, and I was really deep into spy stuff. Like I was pretty young and I didn't really understand like sort of the difference between James Bond and Mission Impossible, but all I knew was that there was spy stuff and gadgets and people taking masks off and revealing they were somebody else. So
Is this pre or post you deciding that being in the army is not a good idea?
I'd say probably during, yeah.
You just really wanted to work for America in some capacity, basically,
I just wanted to be
with a gun.
I just wanted to be an action hero in the '80s, and then I realized that it's better to be an actor than the person actually doing the action in real life. So yeah, there you go.
Indeed.
And then yeah, when this movie came out, and I found out it was directed by Brian De Palma because I'm a huge De Palma fan. I was all in, and I went and saw this in the theater, and I loved it. Now the
Yeah, I
second,
saw it in the theaters too. Very good movie.
yeah,
Very good movie.
and the second one I was very disappointed in because it was directed by John Woo, which I was always a huge fan of his, but I don't know if there was some studio interference. This is when Tom Cruise was going through his like long hair phase, and then which eventually led him into like sort of psycho Scientologists, jumping around on Oprah phase. Like it sort of led into that in the third Mission Impossible. I could say I definitely don't like the third Mission Impossible. But then somehow he was able to pull the nose up on his career. And that the fourth Mission Impossible was pretty awesome, like directed by Brad Bird, the guy who directed The Incredibles. And like they've all been really good after that. Like it's kind of like a
I didn't realize you were such a Mission Impossible head.
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, the last time when I went and saw the latest one, it's pretty iffy.
By the latest one, you mean the one that came out like last weekend or this weekend?
Oh no, yeah, I forgot this. All right, so it's not out yet, but it will be out this Wednesday. I mean, the last one that came out a couple years ago, the one with Henry Cavill in it, and the one where he they made a big deal about the fact that he did one of those like atmosphere jumps. And do you remember them making a big deal about that?
I feel like every Mission Impossible movie, like there's a big deal made out of one of the stunts.
Oh yeah, that's the thing now. They're like, hey, look, he's old, but he's still doing crazy crap. And they also make a.
Well, he was always doing crazy crap, like cause he did all his own stunts pretty much since the first movie.
Right.
But yeah, like now because of his age, he's 60, I think, 60 or 61. I did see an interview. I will say, like, I mean, Tom Cruise is an insane person, right? We all know that. But I will say I appreciate and admire his passion for filmmaking. You can't say that the guy isn't passionate about the projects he does. And he puts his heart and soul into it. And he does seem to care about, like, not just the cast, but his crew on his film sets as well. So, sure, he works or is a part of an organization that kidnaps people just 45 minutes from where I live.
You're not talking about the Impossible Mission Force, are you?
I'm talking about.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I knew exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As long as you can.
But when it comes to filmmaking, his heart seems to be in the right place. Can't argue with that.
Absolutely. I mean, Top Gun 2 was pretty good. Like all the.
I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
And the fact that he makes a big deal about little to no CGI in these Mission Impossible films. They go and they do it old school with actual stunts, and I mean he's a throwback to the way movies used to be and should be made.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, the reason why I brought up how I appreciate his passion is. And folks, don't worry. This isn't going to be a 2-hour podcast. The comic book story we're going to cover is like 5 pages long. So we got to fill this with something. But I was reading an interview that he did the other day, and he talks about how he wants to be like Harrison Ford, referring. He says basically like how Harrison Ford is still doing Indiana Jones. I want to be able to still do Mission Impossible and Ethan Hunt in 20 years. I want to keep doing it. Whereas Harrison Ford. It's not that he wanted to do it. It was just like they were going to do it anyways, with or without him. And he's like, well, fine. Yeah. So like Harrison Ford is he likes acting and he talks about acting, but he didn't really want to do more Indiana Jones. Whereas I like that Tom Cruise is like, yeah, I don't care if I'm known for this thing. I love this.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Harrison Ford got a dump truck of money to be Indy one more time. So how do you say no to that?
Oh, yeah.
So you ready to talk about this comic book here, Mission Impossible #1?
Let's do it.
All right.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
So speaking of Tom Cruise and his fearlessness, I was just wishing that I too could be as fearless as one Tom Cruise. I mean, maybe if I was in a few more blockbusters, aside from the 0 that I've been in, maybe I could live a more, a fearless life. Do you have anything that could maybe help me out with that?
Well, Steve, we can't all be Tom Cruise,
right.
obviously. But we can all wear a no fear shirt to let people know how little fear we have. And I happened.
Are you trying to say that the no fear shirt of the week is back?
It's back. I don't know how long it'll stick around, but it is back today. I found a real gem. This is available for purchase right now on eBay for, I believe it was $79.
All right, let's take a look at this beauty. And whoa, oh wow. If only someone were around who could read this thing to us.
I would love to take that.
Okay, without further ado, here it is, the No Fear Shirt of the Week.
There are those who are born scared, afraid, and not willing to show some sack or guts. We eat those people for breakfast. No fear.
Wait a minute. You eat them sack and all for breakfast?
Sack and all. You're not willing. If you're not willing to show me your sack, Steve, I'm gonna eat it. That's just alpha male shit, Steve.
They thought they were being so edgy. Sack. We're going to put sack on this shirt and it's going to blow everyone's minds. Take that, liberal America.
This sounds like something you would see like at some like extreme right wing gathering, and just replace like there are those with like liberals are born scared or something.
If you don't like my sack, you get out of America.
Yeah, you show me your sack, boy. I'm heterosexual. There's nothing gay about this. You show me that sweet sack, or I'm gonna put it in my mouth.
I'm not even wearing pants right now. Are you saying I'm un-American?
Well, it looks like I'm not wearing pants because they're camouflage, like Jody in
Wow.
Uncle
How
Sam.
odd that you reference an episode that we filmed an entire week ago wearing the exact same clothes.
Yes. Well, I am wearing a No Fear shirt under here.
I'm wearing my...
Not under my shirt. I have it wrapped around my genitals.
Around your sack, yeah. I have the no Fear
around my sack
supporter. Some people call it an athletic supporter, but it's No Fear brand is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But anyways, yeah, I saw this gem today, and wow.
You were like, I had to have it, and you ordered 60. Speaking of things you should order 60 of, I think we should dive into Mission Impossible, the comic book #1.
Let's do it.
And shoot, that's not it. There it is. That was the aforementioned Uncle Sam. Make sure you check that episode out. Before we talk about the cover, let's go into the well, not exactly that, the backstory of this must-have comic book. And as you can see, it is a 48-page spectacular. And we will not be going through all 48 pages, I tell you that. The cover date is May of 1996. Cover price is a whopping $2.95.
It's a spectacular
Yep,
price.
and as we said at the top of the show, this was released to coincide with the first Mission Impossible movie. And here is the synopsis for the second story, which is known as Should Any of Your Agents, because we're not reading the first story because it sucks. Anyway, okay, it's called...
Yeah, although it does have a very similar title, the first story, to an episode of Star Trek.
Oh, really? All right, well, we'll talk about it in a second. Okay, so here's the synopsis. Why Luther Stickle and Franz Krieger were disavowed from the Impossible Mission Force, leading them to be recruited by Ethan in the movie. Do you know the characters for which the synopsis speaks?
The only character whose name I've ever remembered is Ethan Hunt. I haven't seen a Mission Impossible movie in years. I don't remember any of these people.
Well, let me enlighten you. Luther Stickle is the Ving Rhames character.
Okay, I remember Ving Rhames.
He's actually been carried forward through, I think he's pretty much in every movie almost, if I'm not mistaken. And Franz Krieger is Jean Reno, who was killed in the first movie. Do you remember the professional Jean Reno? You remember?
I remember. Oh, he's the actor from the movie The Professional?
Jean Reno, yeah.
With Natalie Portman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that guy because he's in one of the movies I hate the most. He's in a movie called Ronin. With Robert De Niro.
Why do you hate Ronin so much?
That movie. Do you like that movie?
I haven't seen it in so long. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember hating it.
The dialogue is some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in my life. Do you remember the scene where like the professional guy and Robert De Niro, I think they're staking out somebody. I think they have a gun or something, and they're having a little bit of chit chat. And one of them, I think the specialist guy turns to Robert De Niro. He goes, "What do you want for Christmas?" And Robert De Niro is like, "My 2 front teeth." And they have this fucking laugh about it. And the whole movie's just full of shit like that. And the chase scenes are so long and boring. No, Steve, I am appalled that you like that
I didn't
movie.
say I liked it. I just said I don't remember hating it as much as you do.
I know you're just jacking to like was that the guy's name from that other movie?
Anyway, that's again another reference to our previous episode about Uncle
sorry.
Sam. Hey,
there was an actor named Just Jackin in a movie that we talked about. Anyway,
okay, so we'll go to the credits here before we talk about the cover. And both of these stories, which the first story is known as Through a Mirror Darkly, is
And there's an episode of Star Trek Enterprise called A Mirror Darkly.
I'm sure the writer here, Marv Wolfman, who wrote both stories, is probably familiar with that Star Trek episode. I mean, he's pretty much a seasoned comic book writer. He created Nova, Blade, Deathstroke.
Oh,
what's up?
Steve, I'm sorry. Okay. This is called Through a Mirror Darkly. Okay, the Star Trek episode is called In a Mirror Darkly. But yeah, pretty much the same title.
Oh, thank you so much for correcting that. I don't think I would have been able to sleep tonight without knowing that. But yeah, he's worked for all the big two. He's worked on Spider-Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four, and he was basically one of the architects of Crisis on Infinite Earths for DC. And the artists on the first story, which, I mean, we're still not reading it, but I thought I'd, shine a light on these guys. I mean, these guys are basically fill-in artists for Marvel. Some guy named Pino Rinaldi, Rod Wingham, who sounds like a porn star in his own right. He did.
When I saw Rod Wiggum, I thought of Chief Wiggum.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah,
honestly, half the names here sound made up.
Yeah, right.
Rod Wiggum, Andrew Wildman.
He's a real wild man.
Who did the lettering, Steve?
I can tell you that in just a second. It was Eddie Fear or Ed Fear.
Ed No Fear, actually, is what we call him on streets.
Nice. Oh, well done. Well done. But why we're really discussing this book is because the second story is drawn by our God, the guy who we're huge fans of.
The buttons on our jeans.
Right. And by drawn, I mean probably not drawn, but it says it's drawn by Rob Liefeld and Extreme Studios. And
basically, whatever Rob Liefeld didn't feel like finishing because he's always late with his deadlines, he got one of his copycat artists to do, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you obviously read the story, I hope. Do you think that Rob Liefeld actually drew it?
I mean, he definitely did the cover.
He definitely
did. I've got a lot to say about the cover. I don't think he did the story though. It doesn't really look like his art.
The sequentials definitely look like it's one of the interns at Extreme Studios, and he was like, "Oh God, another licensed book. Get in here, Billy. You're up. Just make sure you sort of draw it like me, and we're good."
There's definitely some Liefeldisms in the art, strange small noses.
You gotta have that.
Odd feet or feet that go into a shadow, even though there's no reason for a shadow to be cast on the foot. There weren't a lot of teeth. That's how I was like, oh, this isn't
right. And I'll never forget back in the 90s, probably a little bit earlier before this, when all of Rob's Extreme books were coming out from Image. And I swear it was one every week. You had Youngblood, Prophet, and then Brigade, and Blood Strike, I think, is one of them. And I asked my comic book owner, I was like, wow, how does Rob Liefeld draw all these? And he's just like, he just hires someone to draw it for him and then puts his name on it. And I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, people do that? And clearly, I think that is what's going on here. And in this story, which there barely is one, is also written by Marv Wolfman, who I just previously mentioned. And also, me and Marv, we're like this. His table was adjacent from the Reptilian Media table at the convention I went to, Comic-Con Revolution last month. Even though I never really spoke to him, but I was giving him hey, we're in the biz, right, buddy? I'll call you later. There was a lot of that going on.
Nice, nice.
I'm having a weird day. The name's Adam. Where I'm from, I'm known as the Zero Thief. Depending on who you ask, some might say I'm the best thief. But believe it or not, even the best screws up every once in a while, and that's what I did, and I had to make a fast getaway. I ended up crash landing on this bizarre planet. Turns out, I didn't get away fast enough. These winged freaks followed me here.
It's just us here, Zero Thief, on this empty backwoods planet. So start talking, either to me or my blade.
Okay, I do have something to tell you. It's about the planet. It's not that empty. Come on, man, I thought you were gonna duck. Cut me loose. Cut me loose. Behind you. Whoa! Ah! Thought I was done for. It was gonna be a light snack for our snarling creature, but then she showed up, riding on the back of one of those monsters like it was nothing. And with a wave of her hand, the other razor-toothed beast just stomped away. I'd never seen anyone like her before in my life. I thought I'd say something clever. Thanks, have you seen my ship? She gave me a look that said more than words ever could, because I think she was trying to read my mind or something. And from there, things just got even weirder. Escape to Earth. Issue 2, crowdfunding now.
So there's a sort of interesting backstory for this book. I mean, aside from it being a Mission Impossible prequel, and this like bit of trivia, if you will, is probably more interesting than the story and the book itself. And that is the fact that I guess it got sent to Tom Cruise for his approval. And apparently he sent it back and said that Ethan Hunt was drawn too effeminately. So I have right on the screen right now, the top is the unedited version. So here, this is supposed to be him in the top right corner, and he's got like that weird sort of Cheshire grin, like he's just been perving on a girl wearing stilts and an Uncle Sam costume. And then here's the edited version. He's just, I don't know if it's much better, but it's just, he just looks a little frowny.
I mean, I don't think either look effeminate.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I mean,
I see that they also removed him from the middle panel.
Yeah, that's weird.
I guess he thought like the shirt looked like a women's cut shirt because like the sleeve is like very high up. It's like on his shoulder instead of over his bicep.
Or
is that maybe?
Maybe he thought this is what someone who would be into that would be wearing to a club to show off their muscles or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I neither are particularly effeminate to me, but whatever.
He's very cautious about his image. So if you happen to, apparently the unedited versions were already shipped to Europe, so they couldn't really like pull them back. So if you happen to find a Mission Impossible #1 with supposedly Ethan Hunt looking slightly effeminate, it could be worth a little scratch. You know what I'm saying?
No, the Scientologist will come and kill you if you have. Do not let anybody know.
He'll send his people. Tom Cruise will. So, on to Mission Impossible #1. And here we have the Rob Liefeld drawn cover. What are your thoughts of this cover drawn by our Rod we trust?
Okay, so I got several issues. First of all, there's not really a lot going on. There's most of this is white. This cover is just a white background. But the globe, what do you call that? 4 globe separation thing? Do you know what that's called?
No. I think it's supposed to be like, it's like if you took a globe and like laid it out flat, that's what it would look like.
Yeah, you laid it out flat. Yeah, like the Earth really is. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's and they always do this like globe thing when it's like spread out like with like these like oval shapes, like 4 ovals or something like that. These are the most misshapen shapes of Earth I've ever seen. First of all, way on the right side, what is that? There's like a little hook, and I'm not talking about the hook on his chain or whatever. Like Earth is like.
I see what you're talking about, and. I feel
it's like a candy cane shape.
Yeah,
almost.
I feel like this wasn't even drawn by Rob. I feel like maybe this was like a drag and drop Photoshop. What do you think?
You mean the background, the globe thing? I'm not sure that he drew it either. However, if he was going to draw one of these, I would expect it to kind of look like this.
Yeah.
But there's other problems here. Ethan Hunt definitely was drawn by Rob. We can tell because
he's got the dead-eyed,
his feet come to a
point.
Got the
dead-eyed Rob Liefeld stare.
Yep. A lot of teeth in that mouth. A lot of teeth. Ethan Hunt now has 6 pouches.
You gotta have that. You gotta.
Did you notice, Steve, that Ethan Hunt is not centered to the globe? He's not centered to the book either. Like he's way too much
off to the left. I think is that so they could have that UPC in the bottom? I don't know. That's really weird.
I think it's because if you center him, like maybe his left hand would be off frame, but
yes,
or off cover or whatever.
So and that might explain what's going on with the globe here. It's almost like they dragged it so we could take up more space on the side over here.
Maybe. Well, the globe's not centered either. Look at how much room, white space there is on the left. Yeah, I don't know. Like this cover is a fucking mess. It is very unprofessional.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. But Rob was just so hot that Paramount and Marvel just couldn't say no. This is a Marvel comic, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, and his face looks like what's the character from Youngblood with the bow and arrow? Shaft. Yeah. Like it's the same Shaft face.
It could be Shaft. It could
just
be
the hair's a different color.
Shatterstar. Yeah, either of those two. It's the classic Rob Liefeld face.
And again, we're fans of Rob.
Huge.
Which is why I'm so disappointed with this cover because I know he can do better. Steve? What's going on? Where does his waist end and his genitals start? Like, look at the crotch area. What?
Well, I think this is
Why is his crotch so wide? Like his.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people complain about in regards to Rob Liefeld's work. Not us. We love it. I think maybe
It's like he has no crotch.
Perspective
and like his legs are just coming out of his hip, out of his like stomach.
Yeah, the perspective is really weird. I don't know if it exactly works. I would probably say that it doesn't work.
I think the problem is that the perspective on the upper body is different than the perspective on the lower body, like his legs. Like it's like you're looking at them at two different angles. You would have to.
And my question to you, Yahel, is so he's obviously being blown away by the explosion. Is he being blown towards a camera that is like sitting on the ground, or is like the angle coming from above and he's being blown up to it?
I think the answer is both.
It's both and neither.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's amazing, like all the things that are wrong with it. And yet, when you first like glance at it, like if you just glance at it, it's okay, it's fine. But once you like start like looking at it, I haven't even talked about his arms. Where do his forearms end and his biceps start? Like, what are these arms?
Oh man, I was thinking about posting this one in the Rob Liefeld Facebook group. Maybe
I don't recommend it. And okay, last thing, his left arm, our right, his left. So it's got like a little bit of his forearm exposed. There's like no wrist.
Yeah, it's
like, I don't know. It's like forearm thickness, then suddenly a hand in a glove appears.
I mean, I would say, this is sort of classic licensed property comic book in the way that everyone is probably just here for a paycheck. But you know what?
But I will say, I bet Tom Cruise loved how manly and masculine Ethan Hunt's face here. I mean, this is a jaw. Yeah. And
nobody draws them more masculine than one Rob Liefeld. Well, that's for sure.
That's true. Maybe I wonder if that's how he got involved. I wonder if Tom Cruise like, listen, guys, fine, we can do the comic, but it's really important to me that Ethan Hunt looks masculine
and is drawn by
what are we gonna get?
Like whoever's really hot right now. And so they went to Rob. So let's jump. Anything else to say about the cover here?
Can you imagine you're an inker? Because inkers can draw, right? They're artists as well. And you get this, and this is what you have to ink.
Yeah, it doesn't say who inked the cover. We can only assume that it's one of the guys from Extreme Studios.
Yeah.
They're probably already used to this crap.
And dude, how messed up is it that they didn't credit the actual artist by name? They just said Extreme Studios.
They just wanted to put Rob Liefeld's name on this. That's it.
I mean, that's fine. He did the cover, so they could have said Rob Liefeld and Tim Smith
Right.
or Just Jackin, whoever did it.
And Just Jacket is he's working these days. He's everywhere.
He is. Well,
Yeah.
you can't work in the adult biz forever,
I mean, sadly, that is like a practice that I think has been going on in the comic book industry for quite a while. Like, they used to not even put, I mean, as you can see, aside from Rob Liefeld's name, like, there's no writer's name on the cover or anyone else who was involved. And like that, I remember that was a big deal for a while, especially in Marvel. They never put anyone's names who worked on it on the cover. Like, they're just like, hey, this is just a Marvel book. That's all you need to know. But that's another podcast.
Yeah.
Are you ready to jump into this riveting story?
Yes, let's do
All
it.
right, it's going to take me a minute to get there. You guys can check out the first story on your own if you so desire. It doesn't have anything to do with the movies. It plays more like a, one of the TV episodes, more or less, I'd say. There's a really oddly drawn Jim Phelps, though. I will say that. it's like they couldn't decide if they wanted to make him look like the original Jim Phelps or if they wanted to make him look like what's his name? What's her name's dad, who was in the first Mission Impossible movie?
I don't know, man. You're the fanboy here.
All right, well, his name will come to me in a second. Let me bring up my notes here. Not that I really need them. So yeah, basically this is Mission Impossible, Should Any of Your Agents, and it takes place in San Delvado, South America. I wonder if that's even a real place. I don't know, but it starts out with we are with Luther, the Ving Rhames character, and he's on the phone with Kittredge, who is actually in the movie. They kind of show him in this, but whatever. And basically, he's saying that, Kittredge hired him to do something for him. And Kittredge is all, well, we lost so-and-so. Like, he's trying to get evidence about this General Filippo, basically, so they can bust him or whatever. And so he's throwing grenades. And again, this is the Ving Rhames character. And this is the opening shot. Like, yeah, you can tell right off the bat, this is not Rob Liefeld work. Although that foot there is a little questionable. What do you think?
That's why I said there's a few like Rob Liefeldisms here and there, but yeah, you can tell it's not him.
Yeah, and it's obvious they don't have the rights to any of the actors' licenses because that doesn't look like Ving Rhames in the slightest.
Right.
So one thing
I do like how I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I was just gonna say I do like how in the bottom panel the bad guys are shooting. What exactly? They're like not shooting anywhere near him.
Yeah. They're like shooting at, I guess, the vanishing point.
Columns.
Yeah. There's like a vanishing point in the middle of the page, and that's what they're shooting at. And he's over there off to the left throwing grenades. So yeah, we move on to the next page, and basically it's more action and Kittredge yelling at Luther here. And this is basically where he tells them that, you have to get to the CD directly from the General Filippo or whatever his name is. Let's see, the ghost comes impenetrable. I never dream of it. Oh yeah, and he's like saying like, somebody hacked something? I'd never dream of it. And then Kittredge says, oh, that's not funny because I don't know if you remember or not, but Luther was like the big hacker guy for
Yeah, I do remember that.
So at least I will say compared to the other story, this one has a lot of action in it. And I mean, I guess that's the extreme studio style. What do you think about this bottom panel where basically Luther is jumping through a window and like rolling towards the edge of the roof?
I mean, it's fine, I guess. There's just like not a lot of backgrounds.
Right.
In which again is another Rob Liefeldism, like either like, colors or gradients for the backgrounds, or very undetailed backgrounds. Like the very top, the very first panel at the top, it's just like a greenish background with him at the computer, but it's all in black. Like it's like him at the computer, so there's no detail. Just him in black, like completely like filled in.
Silhouette.
Silhouette, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's how you can save a lot of time and money, which is what license.
At least At least there's no copy paste like we saw in Youngblood number
Oh
one.
man,
like,
I wish there was, because people on TikTok still pushes that video quite a bit, even to this day.
The truth is coming out. No wonder Rob hates us.
Exactly. So moving on to the next page. Let's see what we got here. President Filippo and his men catch up to Luther, and they knock him out. There's really nothing. Again, we see a lot of guys in silhouette here. This is like the first close-up of Luther here, and man, he's got the weird squinty Bedrock, that big rock guy from. He looks like Bedrock from Youngblood.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's trying to get on a hang glider, but yeah, the general and his silhouetted men show up and knock him out. And so now we go to the next page, and we see Krieger. He too is basically in the midst of action. He's in some place called Azamar, Aquestistan, some more made up place. And
no, this is a real place.
I'm sure. I
Sure,
remember the
surely.
Azamar Wars. Man, terrible stuff.
Yes.
So
yes.
he's basically doing surveillance on some other organization, a woman in a white dress, and basically, I guess he's supposed to be talking to Kittredge too. He's basically like, "Oh, I'm going in stealth," and he ends the radio transmission. Jumps through the glass. He grabs the woman, like in the fourth panel here. He grabs the woman, and he's got a chloroform cloth wrapped around her. He's like, and there's dudes around him with guns. He's shooting him, and at the same time, he's like saying how beautiful she is. Too bad I have to chloroform you. Of course, I could. Here, let me do it in the Jean Renault voice. Of course, I could leave you alone once you tell me where the white eagle is hiding himself. And is this your tactics? Like when you go to the castle, do you jump in through the window, threaten to chloroform women in order for them to go home with you? Is this what you would do?
No, I use charm and guile.
Guile, I figured you more
like
for
an
a
idiot,
Ryu
like
guy.
a fool.
But yeah, what say you about what's going on here?
I think you covered it pretty nicely. The feet on the woman here. This is what I was talking about earlier, where there's just suddenly a shadow from her calf down, and it looks like she's got how would you describe this foot? It's like a
stiletto. It's like the stiletto heels also turn into stiletto legs, basically.
Yeah, you know those spring things that you can put on your feet to make you jump?
Oh, Nickelodeon moon shoes?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird shape. Remember Stevie Ray from WCW?
Sure.
He used to hit people with that weapon called a slapjack. Yeah. That's what her foot looks like.
Oh, and you're talking about in the fourth panel down here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry,
you know what?
They're surrounded with guns.
I got you here. It looks like a kangaroo's leg.
There you go. Yes. That's exactly what it looks like.
In the last panel here, Kittredge, God, who looks like an alien, basically. Do you think Rob slightly drew his face and then called the rest of the gang in here to finish it, basically?
I don't know. It's very Rob Liefeld-like.
Squinty eyes, weird, almost skeletal face. It's almost impossible. But anyway.
Yeah, the weird plastic surgery nose.
And it's weird. What's up?
Wait a minute, Steve. Oh my God.
What?
Okay. In the bottom panel, where they're surrounded by the guys with the guns, look at the first guy on the top left. Look at his finger, on the trigger. Look how long his finger is.
Pinky?
Now look at the other guy on the far right holding a gun.
The one with the pinky.
Oh, I didn't even notice the pinky, but yeah, that's terrible too. But the way he's holding the trigger,
his hand like this, it's like a claw.
Yeah, it's stretched out, like Dalsum or something.
See, you didn't see that one Mission Impossible where Stretch Armstrong became bad and joined.
Oh, I'm not as deep in the franchise.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Also, Steve, the guy on the left, top left, where is his forearm coming from? Because that looks like somebody else's arm coming out, because that can't possibly be anatomically connected to his bicep.
Yeah, that is awful. Like classically bad. Rob Liefeld awful. But yeah.
But this isn't even Rob Liefeld. This is, in all seriousness, Rob Liefeld would not have drawn this poorly. This is, you remember? Oh my God, her breasts on the bottom panel, like they're completely different sizes. I mean, like, and in real life, women's breasts are generally different sizes, but they're not exactly the same. But this is like noticeably different.
That's awful, absolutely awful. And the last thing is that I will say, unless we can find any more hidden gems here, is that showing Kittredge in the last panel here is so confusing. I thought he was actually showing up in the scene because he'd only been on the radio the whole time.
Right.
And I also thought it might have been a close-up of Krieger here, but then I was like, no, the hairline is slightly, they look like very similar.
They look very similar. I thought it was the same guy too. I thought it was Kittredge.
Yeah.
But so in the bottom panel here, look at his leg. Our hero's leg here.
That is like nightmare fuel. It's like he's
It looks like an S almost.
He's like a xenomorph is about to pop out or something. Or he's like Stretch Armstrong also.
He's not well.
No,
he's not
definitely
well.
Not. He needs some like vitamin D or I don't know anything about vitamins. Yeah. I'm not even gonna pretend.
And honestly, like the woman in the third panel at the top, her hair looks just like Kittredge's hair.
Oh,
at
the same hairline. Yeah. Ooh, good God. So basically, they're dragging and dropping hairlines, is what you're speculating.
I guess so. You know what? It's a good thing that this story is only 4 pages long, or we'd be here analyzing it forever.
Yeah.
Did you notice that in the first story in this comic book, the first story that's like 33 pages long, they never shoot bullets. IMF never shoots bullets at anyone. They only shoot like stuff to like make them go to sleep, and they make it very obvious. Like they're like, like a guy gets shot, and they're like, oh, you're gonna hate this when you wake up. Like they're always saying stuff like that.
Right. I feel like that's
but here
a throwback to the show. But anyway, continue.
Right, which I thought was like super weird because they definitely shoot people dead in the movies. But here in this panel, this guy like shoots him right in the heart.
Oh, that's Extreme Studios, baby. They're always extreme.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. I'm done with this.
But yeah, I was gonna say the tone between this story and the other one are completely different. This is straight up action, whereas the previous story is mostly just talking and exposition, which is why we're not covering it because it's boring. So yeah, moving on. So basically, Krieger is the loose cannon here. He's shooting dudes all the while, still like hitting on this woman. And the woman is all, stop, don't shoot at him. Why would she care about, I mean, I guess that hasn't been revealed yet. She's like telling him not to shoot the men. And he's all, beautiful and smart. I like that in a woman. Let's go. And she's like telling him to go to this mosque. I was going to say mask. And I forgot the important line from her. She's like, please do not hurt me. I will take you where the white eagle is. And she's telling him to go to this mosque. And again, he's still like hitting on her with a gun to her head going, I agree with his taste in homes and women. How close are you two?
So weird.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's almost as if like Rob, and again, like this doesn't feel like Marv Wolfman wrote this, even though his name was in the credits, because it's completely different than the other. This feels more like something Rob Liefeld would write. And
I agree.
All the while, he's shooting dudes and hitting on girls at the same time. That's a Rob Liefeld thing right there, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So the girl is all, if you harm me, you will be punished. And then so they go into the mosque. Like, again, you don't see them like walk through a door or anything. The third panel is just them standing on this massive like stone floor. It's a bird's eye view and you can barely see them. Again, like weird layouts, weird page layouts. And so he's all like, what are you waiting for? Where's your boss? And she goes, White Eagle is already here, soldiers. And then the fourth panel is, damn it, of course. And then the fifth panel is him very hilariously chloroforming the woman. And it's just... and he's as he's doing it, he's saying to himself, I'm an idiot. I thought the White Eagle on your dress meant you belonged to him. Now you say goodnight, Gracie. And yeah, he's basically cradling her in her arms, and she's passed out. And
Steve, look at her right leg.
oh God, that's bad. And like,
what is going on?
Yeah.
And her right hand too.
yeah, this is like, I mean, you know, assuming let's go with the idea that Rob drew this. This is Rob at his worst, like rushing. If it is him, like this is.
No, he didn't draw
All right.
this. This does not look like his style at all.
And so the final panel is just Jean Reno saying, "Oh, I hate playing the fool." He shoots more silhouetted bad guys.
This panel's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the angle that they went with.
Yeah, it's like they did like a Dutch angle.
Yeah, well said. And so we'll move on to the next page. And again, we're back running on the same roof as before with Luther. And we never see him do it, but I guess he planted explosives into this mosque. And we never even see him hit like the click, the satisfying click that you're supposed to show in every action movie. But he blows up the mosque. Of course, he's jumping towards camera with the explosion going on in the background. And he's saying, "Guess they don't make these mosques the way they used to, especially when they're filled with 100 tons of explosives." It's like, who are you talking to, man? and then we see another silhouette of Jean Reno here, and he's going, "Bad news and good news, Kittredge. I get the evidence you asked for, but there's no more guns for them to ship state." No, wait, I read there. "I didn't get the evidence you asked for, but there's no more guns for them to ship stateside." Did you know that there were guns in that mosque?
I thought like it came up earlier or somebody mentioned it, but I don't know.
I feel like the only thing we knew is that he had to get the White Eagle. That's all we knew.
Yeah, maybe. But the face here on Kittredge, they didn't want to draw any facial details, so they just literally just filled in his face completely black, but like just from like his eyebrows, basically anything that would require you to draw features, eyes, nose, mouth, it's all just done in black. There's like a black triangle over his face. There's no other shadows being cast anywhere in this shot, so it makes no sense. What's the light source? Like, why not make, if you're going to do this to save, time or whatever, which is totally fine. I really don't have a problem with that at all, but make it make sense. Like, if anything, they fucked up by not putting more of him in shadow.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's supposed to be a shadow, but what he looks like is, do you know the DC character, The Question?
I've heard of it.
Well,
yeah.
he is a guy who literally doesn't have a face, and that's what he kind of looks like here. Although The Question's face isn't black, it's just like flesh colored. But yeah, that's this is The Question wearing blackface, basically, which is terrible thing to say. Why did you say that, Yahel? Yeah. Why?
Well, I mean, isn't it weird too? Like in the first story, they have Ethan Hunt, a white man, like disguise himself as a black guy.
I thought he was disguised as like some weird like Polish chef or something.
No, I thought that was somebody else.
That was another problem I had with the other story, but is that
because
since we weren't used to the characters and what they looked like when they went into disguise, like I really had no idea who people were.
Because at one point, like the two black guys are talking to each other, and one of them calls the other one Ethan, and they're both like IMF agents in disguise. Right. So I'm pretty sure. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I misread it or misunderstood.
Yeah.
But,
well, it was the 90s. Things weren't as sensitive back then as they are now, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he's not in blackface.
Right.
Like he has like a mask or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah. It's page 9 of the book. 11 overall of the file, and it's after the guy that gets punched. That's Ethan.
Oh, okay. Should we bring it up?
Because he says here, "You've got to fix the way that tastes," referring to the fake blood capsule.
Oh, right.
And then the other guy says, "Ethan, would you prefer to really to get hit in the face?"
Oh, right. Okay. All right. You got me. Yeah.
So, Anyways, it was just a strange choice.
Yeah.
I thought.
We just finish up the last two panels of this riveting Extreme Studios.
Yes. My apologies.
No problem. And basically, the way the story ends up is Kittredge disavows both Luther and Krieger as they were in the film. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to pay them their money, and then that'll be it. And then it says to be continued in Mission Impossible, the movie. And that is the end of Mission Impossible, the comic book, #1. So anything else to add before we render our verdict here?
No, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Remember how obliterated? That's the question.
All right. Do you think that, hold on, Agent Velazquez, do you think that Mission Impossible #1 should be remembered for all of human history, or classified like government documents, never to be heard from again?
Both stories were pretty rough read for me. I'm going to say obliterate it. But, I'm not like the biggest fan of the franchise, so maybe you'll have a different.
Oh, no. I mean, this is an insult to comics and the franchise, I would say. I mean, if you're really desperate to know what happened to Luther and Krieger, I mean, that's kind of cool. But the fact that it was done so, haphazardly and carelessly by Rob and the Extreme Studios team, I mean, you're probably going to be insulted, as I was. Bad job all around, like everyone. I mean, I would say, at least in the first story, again, which we didn't read, like those fill-in artists like did a mediocre job. And this is like sub-mediocre, but at least it made for a decent episode. But that's still not a reason to keep around Mission Impossible #1. So for all those reasons, you are obliterated.
The heathens have spoken. You are obliterated.
All right, well, nothing like being disappointed by your favorite artist, Rob Liefeld, and mine.
Yeah.
Well, if he even drew it. If.
I am 100% convinced he only did the cover.
But, like, I would have been disappointed even more had there not been bizarre body horror-esque, like, limbs like we saw in this issue.
But it's like Rob Liefeld, like, he doesn't get anatomy wrong in that way, in terms of, like, 'cause this guy's like literally like taking like what would be a straight bone and like having it curved. Like, he doesn't really do stuff like that. He gets things like off in a different way, but it's kind of like more of his, I don't know. When Rob does it, it comes off more as a style.
When he does it, it's cute.
Yeah. I don't know. When Rob does it, it feels more like a stylistic kind of a thing a lot of times.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes you get like a disaster, like the Captain America cover. But did I tell you that I think I'm going to send it to you that I found like a Jim Lee drawing from the 90s where he basically did the exact same thing as that Captain America pose?
I think you did send me that. Yeah.
I think it was like Cyclops maybe, and it might have even been worse than the Rob Liefeld one. So I was like, hey, anybody can forget what a ribcage
where a chest goes.
looks like.
Yeah. You should there's someone on Instagram who does nothing but post like Rob Liefeld X-Men art, and it's just the best. For the most part, it's the best.
Yeah. I bet Rob Liefeld has his address. His family's address is that person is in danger, whoever they may be.
Sure. But so I guess that's gonna do it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Anything else to add, Mr. Velazquez, before we sign off here?
I am good to go, sir.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Make sure you join us next week as we continue to unearth even more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. See you next week.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.